Coming up, it's a brand new episode of Live from My Office. Before that, though, we want to thank our partners at the Raue Center for the Performing Arts in Crystal Lake. This New Year's Eve, we are back again for New Year's Eve for people that can't stay awake until dinner. New Year's Eve for people that can't stay awake until their last dose of meds. It's a 2 o'clock afternoon show. Everybody seems to love the idea, and then you can go out and have your wacky, crazy fun. But I want to remind you about something. Local theaters are important to the communities they're in, but they're important to the rest of us as well. And Raue Center for the Arts has a significant problem right now. There's a building ownership issue, or a dispute, if you will. And regular funding on state and local levels is held up because of it. So if you can, along with picking up your tickets for New Year's Eve, give them a couple of bucks. You can donate right on the website where you buy the tickets, and it's important. Certainly if you're in Crystal Lake, you know how much the Raue Center means to you. If you're in Northern Illinois, for that matter, or on the Wisconsin border, you know that. But it's a great theater with great people, and we hope you'll help if you can, and get your tickets as well for New Year's Eve. It's a Raue Center, and we love it. That's all. RaueCenter.org. Spell it R-A-U-E Center.org. RaueCenter.org. And thank you. This is Steve Cochran, and this is Live from My Office. I'm here to do a deep dive on the 50th season of Saturday Night Live, a show that means a lot to me and means maybe even more to my special guest, Nick Digillio, who actually has devoted an entire podcast series to Saturday Night Live. But how about this? In the 50th season, here's a few things you may not know about Saturday Night Live. You may not know that I was, 13 when it started 50 years ago? And on Saturday nights, that was the thing to do. Here's something I didn't know. Johnny Carson was obviously huge. If you know any of the late night history of network TV, Johnny Carson was the bank at NBC. And he didn't want to work Saturdays. Now, he had Saturday reruns running in that late night Saturday slot. And he'd been such a hit on NBC for years. He owned the Saturday night slot, literally and figuratively. So he wanted NBC to save his show reruns for vacation days during the week. And for that matter, he wanted an all-new show to be developed there. So NBC gave a young man named Lorne Michaels the shot, and 50 years later, it seemed to have worked out just fine. The original title for the show, Saturday Night Live, was already being used by Howard Cosell. Now, you've got to be almost my age to know how big a deal Howard Cosell was. But Howard Cosell hosted he was a pop icon, but he was mostly a sports guy, and one of the originals on Monday Night Football. And he hosted a show called Saturday Night Live. It was so bad, TV Guide called it Dead on Arrival, which is like a Broadway show getting killed on its opening night. So the title became Saturday Night Dead. It went away, and Lorne Michaels and NBC were able to pick it up. How about this? Jim Carrey tried to become a cast member at Saturday Night Live twice. Both times was turned down. We believe the person who made that decision was not Lorne Michaels, and they have not been seen for years. Chevy Chase was the first person to say, live from New York, it's Saturday night. Let's see what else I have for you. Alec Baldwin has hosted the show more than anyone else, 17 times. Those hosting over a dozen times, Steve Martin, John Goodman, Tom Hanks, all those old guys, I'm sure, will make a drive-by appearance in this 50th season. Tina Fey was the first woman to be head writer on the show, and she had a lovely little tidbit she shared. Tina Fey said the boys in the cast would be stuck in the office for so long trying to write or not having the energy or interest to leave, they would pee in jars in their office. And that was only a few years ago. Meanwhile, Aubrey Plaza, the delightfully weird and lovely young actress, was an intern at Saturday Night Live in 2005. That was before she got Parks and Rec. Mindy Kaling's dream was to always work at Saturday Night Live, and even after she got the office and was offered a writer's job on SNL, she considered leaving the office to do that. They wouldn't break her contract. She stayed. Things worked out. How about this? Dan Aykroyd and John Belushi had bunk beds in their office. They say the stench was unbelievable. Meanwhile, the women of the original cast had to share a dressing room for the first 3 years. That's Jane Curtin, Lorraine Newman, and Gilda Radner. One tiny dressing room for all three ladies. That balance has changed. Nick and I get into that. Youngest person ever to host a show, Drew Barrymore at the age of 7. Oldest, Betty White at the age of 88. Let me get you a couple more here. Just a couple more additional facts before we actually start this deep dive. I'll give you one last one. When the series first aired, guess how much the original cast made? Their take. The original cast, the not ready for primetime players, $750 a show. Oh, how times have changed. Will this be the last season for Saturday Night Live? Its 50th season. Will Lorne Michaels step down after all these years? Who will replace him? What do you think of the cast that's currently there? How about some new folks? We talk about it all. Nick Digillio and I do. And in the meantime, I'd love for you, if you're not already a subscriber, to subscribe and follow Live from My Office wherever you are. And we get you great guests, great stuff to hear about and listen to all the time. So do that on whatever platform you're listening to this podcast, Live from My Office, and download it for a family friend who's not so technologically skilled as you clearly are. Again, thank you for listening. Let's get after it. Nick D and me talking about the 50th season of Saturday Night Live. Well, this is good for you and me. It's a reunion of sorts because I haven't seen my friend Nick D since June when I was thrown out of the last place I worked. And Nick was a regular guest on that show. And he's good enough to take some time away from his 14 podcasts and do this one because we have to talk about Saturday Night Live, my friend.
Yeah, we do. 50 years. 50 years.
It's our mutual obsession. Actually, let me take a step back first. A friend of mine, Bill Zemi, tried to write a book about his idol, Johnny Carson.
Yeah.
Now, Zemi and I are older than you. Bill Zemi passed years ago after a long battle with cancer.
Yeah.
But Bill Zemi's dream as a boy was to be Johnny Carson, not to be a great writer, but to be Johnny Carson.
Mm-hmm.
And that was our bond because, I wanted the same thing. He was too tall. I didn't have hair. Both of those got in the way. But he got the only interview Carson was willing to do after he left the Tonight Show. And if you Google Bill Zehme, Johnny Carson, you can read that interview. Yeah. It's a very specific style, but it led to this idea of writing the ultimate Carson book. And it was literally his Moby Dick. He could not finish it when he was healthy. And after he got sick, it became impossible.
Right.
And it was recently finished by a guy you and I both know, Mike Thomas, longtime Chicago Sun-Times writer.
Yep.
I have not read it, but it's out now. And if it's got Bill Zemi's name on it, it's worth your effort, your time. But I didn't know if you would cross paths with him on your own show through all those years at
Bill
GN or anywhere else. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Bill was on my show many times, we were in contact. We were in contact not regularly, but semi-regularly. I knew Bill, of course. We ran in the same circles and stuff like that. Loved him, loved his work. Brilliant guy, man. And the stuff that he would write about. I mean, his stuff about the Second City, definitive. You know what I mean? And a great mind, a really cool dude, and I got along with him famously. And yeah, I wanted him to finish that Carson book as well.
Yeah, he was just tortured by it. Anyway, it's called Carson the Magnificent. So there's a cheap plug for my old friend.
Yeah.
Let's talk about SNL's 50th year with the obvious question. Is this it? Do they go beyond this year? Knowing how fast the landscape's changing, do they have to come up with a reinvention of the product and do it somehow on my phone?
Well, that's already, it
exists, right? But I there's something that's true to what we know.
I really don't think SNL is going to ever go away. I mean, maybe I'm just being, hopeful because I love it so much and I've watched it since the very first episode, as you know. And, but I really think after Lauren, and I think Lauren's gone after this season, and there's all these rumors about who's going to come in, who's going to take over. And the most likely candidate at this point, everybody is saying, is Tina Fey.
And sense.
How much it does. It does. And how much is
two things. It makes sense and it does make sense. It makes sense because she's brilliant and she knows how to run a show. She loves the show. She got her break there.
Yeah.
It doesn't make sense because it's like following Zeus.
True.
Who's
as you know, who, the people who tried to follow Zeus for those few years when Lauren was gone, those are bad years. I mean, not terrible. I mean, in those years, you did discover, people like Julia Louis-Dreyfus, and I mean, who really, wasn't very well known on that show, but like Eddie Murphy came out of those years, and some great people and some great sketches came out of those years. But like, I mean, that Gene Domanian year was a nightmare, and Ebersol took over, and he didn't make it any better. And when Lorne came back, he tried new things, but then adjusted into what was comfortable, and that's what he's been doing ever since. And I think to mess with that formula would be really stupid, and I think Tina knows that. And they've adjusted for modern times, as you know, like the Lonely Island guys, Andy Samberg and those guys. They, when that Lazy Sunday, the Chronicles of Narnia video with him and Chris Parnell rapping came out, that changed everything. I mean, like, younger people, YouTube, like Lorne didn't want anything on YouTube. And then when he saw what was happening, he was like, oh, let's put that on YouTube, and then it was finally like he embraced the technology. So I think, the show has done that over the years. It's altered. But if you just follow the formula that Lorne Michaels set into motion in 1975 and then altered a little bit, I think the show can stay around forever. I really do.
We can still watch it. We being those of us over the age of 50, you probably go over the age of 40. Is the attention span of people under the age of 40 such that on a Saturday night they're going to spend an hour with that?
Well, that's a good question. And that's one of the reasons, why people, I think the majority of people who consume SNL don't do it in the old fashioned way by, sitting in front of the TV and watching it on a Saturday night, like getting some food and hanging out or a couple of drinks and whatever. And what they normally do, and what really started happening around the mid 2010-ish, 2015-ish, is I'm going to wait till Sunday, or I'm going to wait till Monday morning, and that's how I'm going to watch it. And has NBC has obliged by that. I mean, they have a whole SNL channel on NBC.com, and you can watch it in chunks. Like if you missed something that was like a sketch was big, it's going to be there on Monday morning. You missed Update. They show all of Update. You can just like watch all of Update. So basically, I think a lot of people, the majority of people who do consume SNL, consume it in that way, like on a Monday or during the week, or when they're screwing around at work, when they're watching last week's Update instead of doing a report that they're supposed to be doing. But I don't think, and again, as you know, Steve, like rating systems are so weird now, like television ratings. Nobody really knows how the hell they're measured or what happens. So the traditional, it's 10:30, it's time to sit on the couch and watch SNL. I don't think that exists. Only dorks like me do that.
Well, you and I both.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, can NBC afford to keep it, or can they afford to lose it? I would err on the side of they need it, because the networks are going broke faster than you could possibly imagine. Yeah. And this is a touchstone show where traditional advertisers are still going to come in because it's advertising based, and that's how they make their money, and blah blah blah.
I think money wise, I think they're doing fine, and I think they will continue to do fine. It's not like they pay these people on SNL a ton of money.
No, they don't.
I was just, not to name drop Steve, but a few weeks ago I was hanging out with Punky Johnson, who is not coming back this season. She has left, and she's never really found, as you know, she never really found her groove. She is a full-on lesbian comedian, black lesbian comedian, who tried to play the game for a few seasons and was never really allowed to do the kind of stuff. And then when it became very, very clear that Maya Rudolph was going to come back to do Kamala, that was when I think Punky went, okay, well, I mean, that was my only sort of thing, was, that I could probably do that. And then, obviously, when you get a big name like Maya Rudolph, who agrees to come back and play Kamala, and and play her.
Is Maya Rudolph? Let me check with Trump. Is Maya Rudolph black? When did Maya Rudolph claim she was black?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Right?
Not really sure. But it's interesting because, like, at that point, it was like, okay, well, clearly Maya Rudolph is going to come back, hopefully for 4 years. I really hope it's 4 years.
Right.
So I think this is what. So anyway, I talked to Punky. Long story short, I talked to Punky, and we talked about the kind of money that she was making on SNL. And I mean, it's fine, but it's not. You're not going to. NBC's not breaking the bank paying these people, especially when the turnover. They hired 3 new people this year, and they're not going to pay them. They're going to pay them even less than what they were paying Punky, and even less than what they were paying Molly Carney, and
And Lauren's template for this, which exists the same way it did 50 years ago, is you come in and you're a featured player for 2 years, and if you're good enough, then you're elevated to a member of the cast. But I can tell you this, having been sniffed at to be a writer on that show in the '90s, in the early '90s,
Yeah.
the offer was $70,000. Now, $70,000 in the early '90s in New York didn't get you a lot.
Mm,
$70,000 in 2024 in New York doesn't get you a box,
yeah.
and living in Central Park.
Yeah.
Um, so you have to figure out a way to make it work. And then, like the rest of show business, when you break through, that's when the money train comes by and
That's right.
leaves
That's
some
right.
for you.
That's
But it does go to the change in cast members like Punky, who are super talented, but
yeah.
couldn't wait around, and to go off and chase the other thing. I just think we're at a real fork in the road here for the show. And I'll be honest with you, it wouldn't surprise me if Lauren sometime around Christmas says we're done. We're gonna do 6 months and we're done.
I gotta say, Steve, I guess I wouldn't be surprised by that. Maybe I'm just trying to be optimistic because this has been such a major part of my life for 50. I'm 59, and this has been a major part of my life for 50 years almost. And I was 10 when the show first aired, and I've been watching it for that long. And so, yeah, I mean, but I wouldn't, seriously, I mean, Lauren's in charge. And if Lauren wants to shut the thing down, he'll shut it down. And I mean, the guy runs all of NBC late night. Like he runs it all. He runs the Tonight Show. He runs the Seth Meyers show. I mean, late night on NBC, he is the czar. And so what he says goes. And if he decides that this is going to be the final year of SNL, I hope he doesn't. But again, it's a possibility. I agree with you. It is a possibility.
Yeah, and you see the cuts they're making. Seth Meyers loses his band and
Yeah,
things that would have been unthinkable in the past. Because what happened is, and this goes to our history in radio. I mean, 20 years ago, I said, look, let's ride radio for as long as we can, but everything's going to end up on your phone. And when it ends up on your phone, radio is still the background, the platform to promote all the clips and all the other stuff they're doing. That's what TV has done now, those folks on TV that get it, which all leads to a blatant plug for your podcast on Saturday Night Live, which is called
That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, an SNL podcast. And I name it that ironically, as you know, because I get really sick and tired of people all the time. People who don't watch it, people who haven't watched SNL, people who haven't watched SNL for 15 years, like, oh, that used to be funny. It's not funny anymore. Well, are you watching it? No. Well, then how do you know it's not funny?
right.
And I think you agree with me on this. SNL has always been the same. It's always been hit and miss. People look back on it. I mean, like you and I are old enough to have watched it when it first aired. And I don't know. I mean, everybody, and you have a great theory about like, how people have rose colored glasses specifically, when they watched it. Your theory is that when people watched it during their high school years or formative years, and that's their,
and it's not just my theory. It's been said by others, but your favorite cast is your high school years when you're hanging out with your friends. Now that's if you're old like I am. I'm 63, so I was 14 when it started. But I mean, every Saturday night we were kids, and on Saturday night we would go back to somebody's house, not to make out, not to drink. We'd go back to laugh our asses off and watch this crazy show called Saturday Night, which became Saturday Night Live quickly. And there were definitely sketches that missed wildly.
Oh yeah.
But you think back and you go, oh God, that was all great.
Everything was great. But that's the thing though. It's like, so that's why I call the podcast That Show Hasn't Been Funny in Years, because like people say it all the time. And then I quiz them. I go, okay, well, what about what's not funny? And they're like, well, I haven't watched it in like 15 years. I'm like, well, then what the hell are you talking about?
Right.
What do you
do? Us
a
favor and shut up.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's do a deep dive on the show on this season coming up, because I think
I've got in front of me. I do have the first 5 hosts and musical guests in front of me.
Okay, so let me jump to that. But first, let me start with the meat to me, which is Weekend Update.
Yeah.
Michael Che and Colin Jost have been doing this for years now.
Yeah.
And I wasn't a big fan when they started. I'm a big fan now. But Che had a weird moment recently where he was on somebody's podcast, and he said he almost quit over one of Colin Jost's jokes when they go after each other. But then he's talking about how, well, we can't really talk about how season 50 is going to be until season 51. So he's talking about how he's going to be around. I think Weekend Update is in a really strong spot. And I think that if that works, that in and of itself can hold the show up.
I think that's a great point. And I do think that Weekend Update has been strong. And, like last season, the 49th season, I did a summation of the 49th season I don't know, 10 episodes ago from my podcast when the season ended back in May, and I think it went up in June. So a few months ago, I did a thing, and it was a decent season, not a great season, 49, but consistently, even if the host sucked or some of the sketches were bombing or things weren't working out, consistently, you can almost always count on, at least the past few seasons, you can almost always count on Update, to be a highlight, whether it's the stuff that Jost and Che wrote or some of the other writers wrote, or some of the desk stuff that they do, like when they bring out cast members who can't really fit in, who don't do like wacky characters or anything, and whose strongest stuff is adapting their stand up to the Weekend Update desk. But every week it got to the point where it's like, well, but that sucked, but at least Update is next. And I still feel that way. And I think that Che and Jost are terrific. I think they're great together. I just heard that
Jost isn't the head writer anymore. I didn't even know that.
He's not. Yeah, he's not. Oh shit, I can't remember.
Is it somebody on the cast or is it somebody backstage?
It's somebody backstage who is head writer now, but been a writer for a long time. And so, and obviously some of the cast members do write. But yeah, there was a time when Che and Jost were co-head writers, and they both stepped down from that season before last.
I got to tell you something. That is a sweet gig because they will both whine and cry about it. And I'm not giving them a hard time because anybody in that position would. But you cannot write Weekend Update until Friday.
No, you can't.
Friday and Saturday morning, they're slaving over how to get that 7 to 12 or 13 minutes out of it.
Yeah.
And then sets have to be slapped together. If there's any additional stuff going on, sets for stunts and things. Yeah. But they essentially work. They're like a game show host now. They're working 2 days a week.
What's really hilarious is the way that the news cycle is going now. I mean, if you here's the thing. I talked to someone who said that a friend of theirs went on like an excursion and a trip for like a month. Mm-hmm. And when he came back, he was like, wait a minute. Biden's not in the race anymore. Somebody shot at Trump. What the hell is going on? He was good. Like the news cycle is so absolutely insane that You mentioned that Saturday night that Update's not written until Friday. Sometimes it's not written until Saturday because crazy shit happens leading until the very moment, especially in this news cycle. You got to be ready. Yep. You got to be ready to pull jokes that might not work and just replace them with what is new. I mean, I can't imagine. It was really funny when last week tonight with Oliver, because John Oliver obviously he has the luxury of only being on once a week, but that's also a challenge to be timely. And so he records on Saturday and the show is on, the show runs on Sunday. And the whole Biden's not in the race anymore thing happened on a Saturday. And right. So when he came on Sunday, it was almost prescient. He came on, he went, I don't know if this is going to be time. He was hinting at the fact that Biden might not be in the race anymore. And it had happened. And so you can't even, it's hard to do like daily news. And even the Daily Show has a hard time with it. It's crazy, but yeah, updates an anchor.
You mentioned the Daily Show. Unfortunately, that's an ADD spur for me. I love Jon Stewart. I love Jon Stewart, and I love him partly because he's aging faster than I am. But Jon Stewart is doing this thing now where he's yelling.
Yeah.
And it's almost too much for me. Now I'm watching him on Monday nights, but we're not here to talk about that. All right, let me go through the cast here. We'll do this fairly quickly because we have limited time. Okay. Mikey Day, what do you think?
Really strong. And it took a long time for him to get as strong as he is now. He's an anchor. I think he is, and he writes a lot of great stuff. He also brings a lot to the game, and he is looked upon as well respected. He's been there long enough to know the deal. He's got a lot of great characters. I like Mikey Day. I think he's solid.
I agree. Andrew, well, by the way, Mikey Day, we need a new Is It Cake. So let's get after it. My two grandchildren of my three that are 8 and 5, they're demanding it. Andrew Dismukes. This is a guy who's sneaky, perfect.
I got to tell you, over the summer, my girlfriend and I went to go see the Summer Jobs stand-up tour, which was Devin Walker, Andrew Dismukes, and James Austin Johnson. Oh, wow. And it was terrific. And their stand-up is great. Dismukes' stand-up he killed, Steve. He
really
absolutely destroyed. All three of them were pretty strong, but Dismukes killed. And he's another guy who, when he was a featured player, was fine, whatever. I think he's great. I think he's absolutely hilarious.
Yeah.
And my favorite sketch of last year was when Kristen Wiig came back to host, and they did the whole sketch about how she didn't want to be Jumanji'd into a board game.
Yes.
Mikey
She was
Day,
afraid of board games.
yeah, she was afraid. Mikey Day and Dismukes wrote that sketch, and Dismukes says, I think he says Jumanji like 30 times in that sketch, and every time he finds a different way to say it. That's the thing about, I think Dismukes is great. I really do, and I think he's got a huge future ahead of him.
And I love thinking backwards when you see a premise like that going, what was a pitch like in the writer's room for that sketch?
That's exactly right.
So, Chloe Fineman, I love her. I think
I do too.
So many great women have come through SNL in the last 20 years, and she's one of them.
She's great. And I mean, obviously her strength is her insane impersonation skills. I mean, she is a great impressionist and does a great job. She's also very attractive, and she can play all kinds of different things. I just saw her in the new Francis Coppola movie Megalopolis.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, she's insane in that. But no, I think Chloe's great. She's terrific.
As is Heidi Gardner, who gets better and better and better.
She's my favorite cast member. Member. Yep, love her.
And from Kansas City and a Chiefs fan. We've had enough of the Chiefs, but not enough of her.
Right.
I'll tell you, I've really grown to like a lot is Marcelo Hernandez.
He's another guy who's go ahead.
And he's great on the desk for update.
That's the thing. His strength is his stand up, and especially who he reminds me of, and this is going to be an obvious thing, and maybe it's like very white of me to say this. He reminds me a lot of Freddie Prinze, a lot. And young, and his stand up is very Latino edged and really smart. I think he's very funny. He's game for anything, and his strongest stuff I think is on the update desk.
James Austin Johnson, who is the cast nerd, does the most phenomenal set of impressions you could possibly imagine.
It's unbelievable.
Like he's got five. Every great impressionist will tell you they have 100 voices. They have 10, and they probably have 5 that they can go to.
Yeah.
But his stuff is amazing, and I can't get enough of him either.
Yeah, I think he's great too. Is obviously his strength is the impressions, but he also is a guy who does like weird character work, and he and Dismukes work really well together. They've done update desk stuff where they are like members of a band. Well, they'll come in and they'll just be like a duo of a band, and they'll sing and write weird songs and stuff. He works very, very well with Dismukes as well when he's not doing incredible. His Trump is unbelievable. I mean, his Trump is perfect, and it's not like a characterization. It's not like a caricature like what Baldwin does and some of these other guys do. I mean, the voice is good, the mannerisms are good. It's an actual impression. Yeah, he does.
Yeah. And
all those subtleties in Trump. It
is a weird. It's a weird thing for me to put in a sentence. And Trump's not going away, boys and girls. When he loses, he will still be around to haunt our dreams.
Yeah.
Michael Longfellow. I don't know what I do with him. I like him. Yeah, he makes me laugh, but he's a weird fit.
He is a weird fit. He's also a weird dude. Not to drop names, but I did hang out with him when he was in town. And he's a good dude. And when they find the right stuff for him, Michael put it to me this way. He's like, because again, he's more of a stand up than anything else, and he doesn't do a lot of impressions or character work. But his stand up is weird and funny. And when they find it, his strongest stuff again is at the desk, is at update desk. And he said to me, and this is absolutely true. He's like, yeah, when they find a really weird costume, they put me in it, and then I'll do whatever. They dress me up as like a cigarette, or they,
right.
Like, so he's like weird costume guy. That's like kind of his thing. But he's fun. He's a funny dude though. He's a funny dude.
Now Ego Wodom's back, right?
Yeah, she's terrific. She is great. She does great character work. The whole Lisa from Temecula thing has gone down. They've done that 3 times in a year and a half, which is very unusual for her to do that. She's cutting. I want my, when she's like, I want my meat cooked, and she's trying to cut the steak, and the whole table is shaking and stuff. That's kind of like her quintessential character now. But she's strong. She's great. I think we've talked about this before, Steve, for many, many years, and I think the majority of the existence of Saturday Night Live. Once they started letting the women do what they wanted to do, which they didn't in the first bunch of seasons, for me, the best cast members consistently have been the women. And I feel that way. I feel that way about the last 10 years. I feel that way now.
And you could find great women all through the 90s as well, and they were limited. Sure. That was really the crossover before they got into the point where they go, wow, women are funny.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. You've known Sarah Sherman for a long time.
I knew her. She
seems like somebody that Homeland Security should be watching, even though she makes me laugh every time I see her.
She's I know her from the underground comedy circuit, whatever that means, in Chicago, and she's known as Sarah Squirm. She was known as Sarah Squirm here, where and her like if you the best way to describe what she really does, and I remember when I heard she got hired, I'm like, huh, what the hell are they gonna do with her? You know, like because she's so insane. Like if you were to describe her comedy, it would be like if David Cronenberg did stand up. You know, like that's like it's body horror. If you want to see The Brood or Videodrome or The Fly on stage, that's what she does. And I remember when she got hired, I was like, what? But they have she's really obviously she's altered herself. She really loves SNL. She loves it. That's and right. I think she's strong and you know, the weird stuff. They let her do weird stuff. Like the episode where very early on, I think it was like it was in her first season, I think, where her whole body was covered with singing meatballs. Yes. And one of them was Oscar Isaac. And that was when Oscar Isaac hosts. That's her. That's like her. Like like her body is like disgusting singing meatballs hanging off of it. That's her sense of humor. And they let her do that. And it was great. Yeah. I love her.
And I actually had to look this up. You probably know the answer. Do you know how many seasons Kenan Thompson has been on as cast member?
22?
21.
Yeah, 21. This will be 22. This will be 22.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy? Because he caught so much shit when he first got on the show. Because we were like, oh, this is a kid from Nickelodeon. He sucks. He's not good, and he was kind of shaky. And now he's the elder he's the elder statesman.
He's the old guy.
Yeah, he's the guy. When I talked to Longfellow, and when I talked to you know, everybody who's ever worked with him, like that's the guy. He walks in, he knows what to do. And even if a sketch is not working, if Keenan's in it, that part will work. He was
he's got unbelievable likability.
He does.
Even if he comes in and he smirks through a sketch and you go, well, he's not that great an actor. He's this, he's that. He's impossibly. I mean, the camera likes him.
Yeah,
and he's likable in whatever he does.
Everybody loves him. I mean, you know, I think right around when they started doing What's Up With That was when people were like, wait a minute, this guy is so lovable and so funny. And every time he would do that take to the camera where he'd hear the music start and he'd go, ooh, and he'd look at the camera. Like at that moment, there was just something happened because What's Up With That took off. But I mean, he's great. And you think about it, the guy's a pro too. Like if you want to run something past somebody, you want to get the opinion of somebody, you go to Kenan. And also, like, who's the only person that didn't break during that Beavis and Butthead sketch? Kenan. The only one that didn't break. And Heidi Gardner never breaks. And she lost her shit completely during that sketch. Yeah. But the only one that did not break, Kenan.
Now, here's a guy, and we're doing this all alphabetically. It's a salute to Don Pardo, because, you know, that's the way it's always been done.
Yeah.
But Devin Walker, what do you do with him?
Well, they haven't been doing much. And again, having seen that tour with Johnson and Dismukes and him, Walker's a great stand-up. He's a great stand-up. But his persona, like Punky's, is much more ethnic and much more African-American tinged. You know, he pulls that back when he's on SNL because he goes out to the edge with that kind of stuff during his stand-up.
That might be the way to make him great, is let him do his thing.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you know, back in 82 or 81, 80 or whatever, when Eddie Murphy first got on the show when he was like 17 or whatever, or 18, just 17. They let him do whatever he wanted to do. He was like this, you know, he started doing stand-up. You know this already. He started doing stand-up when he was like 15, 16, underage.
His mom would drive him.
Yeah, it's insane. And the stuff that he was doing was the stuff that he saw in his neighborhood and stuff that he saw in his family, which obviously was African-American. And he brought that and you know, and nobody was really running the show at SNL at that time. So as a result, like they were like, whatever this kid's doing, just let him do whatever the hell he wants to do. And that's what they need to do with people who are limited by either their sexuality sometimes on the show or their ethnicity or their background, you know, where they wanted to all fit into a very white kind of thing. They need to let these people do what they want to do.
Well, and I saw that with Bowen Yang, who is coincidentally next. Bowen Yang has come out a second or third time, and he's as gay as he needs to be or wants to be in sketches, and he's great. He's fall down funny.
He's great. You know what? I had a hard time with Bowen at first. I had to kind of get used to his humor. He kind of, because you know, it's a personal thing, Steve. Some people you find funny, and some people you just find a little bit, you know, they get under your skin, or you just don't get it. You know, like for instance, I'll give you the prime example for me, the legendary example for me. I never, and I know that, you know, if you could reach through the computer right now and punch me in the mouth, I never got, quote unquote, I never got, and I still don't get Stephen Wright. And
Oh,
I just like the
well, I
whole
mean,
deadpan thing. And I
that's
just,
not even an acquired taste. That's either you're with it or you're not. You
yeah,
know, Mitch Hedberg did a different form
yeah,
of that. Also,
yeah,
really,
yeah.
really well
And
known. And it's
unique
just deadpan jokes. Yeah.
sometimes there is, you know, the kind of humor that you're like, for a while you're like, man, I don't really think that's funny. And that's how I felt about Bowen Yang. But I think he's eased into, like a lot of these people, I think he's eased into, he's terrific and very funny. And his update stuff, you know, like a lot of his update stuff is hysterical. The iceberg from Titanic is
Well, that's the
absolutely.
thing. When he is put upon, when he feels like, oh my God, I can't believe they put me in this costume. When he's that guy,
Yeah,
he's funnier.
he is.
All
Yeah,
right, we got
he is.
three new people who are walking in on season 50. How about that for pressure?
Yeah.
Starting with a lovely young lady named Ashley Padilla.
Hmm.
I don't believe it's Padilla. That's the way white people would pronounce it. But Ashley Padilla, who is a
Yeah.
Groundlings cast member. I know nothing about her. What do you know?
Yeah, I don't either. I've done a little research on her, but I haven't really watched a lot of her stuff. I plan to before the premiere. But yeah, I hear she's very funny.
And he got a kid from Chicago by way of various other places. Emil Joachim.
Yeah,
I saw his Tonight Show set. It's not for me.
yeah,
It's a different sort of rhythm and vibe. It's a decade of the 20s stand-up thing. He's funny. He's got a face and a look that they could put into a
yeah,
lot of different sketches.
yeah, yeah.
So he
And
sort of fits a category.
he's open for Devin Walker and Dismukes and those guys. And I've seen a couple of his sets. I think he's funny. I don't know what exactly they're going to do with him, but at this point, I think he'll add some energy but I think the guy's funny. He's got some chops on stage at least.
And the third is Jane Wickline. Here is your mandatory pull it from the social media influencers
Yeah,
world. She's got 1 million TikTok followers. I've watched a few of her clips. Again, they're not for me,
yeah.
but she's got a look and a thing that I think she could be a breakout. I think she's one to watch.
I agree. I totally agree. And I've only done a little bit of, but I mean, like the whole like influencer, like, you know, TikTok thing is kind of lost on me because I'm old. and and I mean, I'm open to any kind of comedy. Like, hey, I don't care where you come from. If you're funny and you can add, you know, a unique element to the show and you can just make people laugh, then yeah, I'm all about it. And I'm hoping that this one's good too. So it'll be
Daryl
interesting to
Hammond's.
see.
I was going to say Daryl Hammond's back to be the announcer. Is there a reason they don't use him in sketches very often?
No, that's a good question. I don't know if there's a contract thing or what. I think it's just something he wants to do. He just wants to be the announcer, and you know, I guess he just wants to just pick up where Don Pardo left off. I mean, it's amazing that in the 50 years that the show has existed, there's only been two announcers, and it's just Pardo for the majority of
Forever,
seasons.
right?
And then Daryl Hammond. And I remember when Daryl Hammond got the gig, I thought to myself, was he going to imitate Pardo? Because I
Right.
think, you know,
Same
like, and of course he wasn't, because that would have been a stupid idea to have somebody imitate Don Pardo. But he could do. He in fact on the show, Daryl Hammond had done Don Pardo impressions,
Yep.
and
Yep.
but I think Hammond is just going to be strictly the announcer, and I think he's cool with that. He spent a solid amount of time in front of the camera on that show doing really pretty important work, and he was really.
Oh, he's
screwed
really
up on
funny.
this.
It was really funny. He's got a lot of demons that he's been very honest
Yeah,
about,
yeah,
and it comes from a whacked out family, like many of us do. But
yeah,
when he was in town doing stand up, I'll name drop for you. When he was in town doing stand up a few years ago, he asked to talk to me, and this is after he did a hit on the show, and he said, you know, I've listened and I've heard good things, and you have any tips for me? This was right after he became the
wow.
announcer. And I said, no. I said, no. I said, that's a specific talent,
Yeah,
being the booth announcer for a TV show. I said, you got to find your lane. I said, so, you know, there is no tip that's
yeah,
going to make you comfortable with it. And I thought it's weird to say this, but as the announcer, I thought he was a little rocky in the first couple of years. And now
yeah,
he's what the announcer is supposed to be. He gives you that background, that layering
yep,
effect. But the only time you notice him is if he screws something up, and he doesn't.
yeah.
He's smooth.
Yeah, he is very smooth. It's funny though, like when Pardo in the early days, Pardo became part of the show. Like he would
Yep.
do wacky bits and stuff, and and at the end, I don't know if you remember that. Well, you remember. There's a lot of people might not, but at the end of every show, he would come on and go, "Join us next week
Yep.
for
Yep.
and then he would do that and good night, and he would do like the weird, the weird sort of ending.
Well, the weird
And
thing is that Pardo was the guy, the old guy to those original cast members.
yeah,
And Daryl Hammond is now, in a different way. But Pardo was the bigger than the room, forced radio voice announcer guy who
yeah,
also had a sense of humor.
yeah.
And yeah, it makes total sense. He was part of it. All right, you said you know who the original or the early season hosts are. Who are they?
Yeah. So for September 28th, the season premiere is I think genius on this part. Gene Smart, who is having
So good,
a
so good.
a couple of years that are just amazing. So
If
Gene
you haven't
Smart is the
seen
host.
Hacks, get
Oh,
Max just for Hacks. It is the best portrayal of a stand-up I've ever seen a real actor do, and
and
male or female, and she's great.
yeah, and the connection to SNL is huge in that because Hannah Einbender is Lorraine Newman's daughter. So from one of the original cast members, that's his
So she
daughter.
doesn't
But
walk on this weekend, doesn't she?
I would imagine so. You
Yeah,
can't, and I wouldn't even be surprised if I wouldn't even be surprised if Lorraine Newman showed up, just like a
That'd be
thing,
cool.
because it's the 50th. I expect surprises, and I maybe I'm expecting too much, but I expect surprises and big things every episode for this entire season. And I know in February is the big 50th anniversary, 3-hour primetime special, which of course I'm looking forward to. But I really do think that they're going to try to do something out of the box, honoring 50 years on every episode. I really do.
I agree. Yeah, I think
So
it's smart.
Gene Smart, I think Gene Smart's going to Jelly Roll, who just did the in memoriam at the Emmys.
He was great.
Yeah.
He was great. He's got that. If he gets one more tattoo on his face, he won't be able to see his eyes. But he's got a great backstory.
Yeah.
And he talks about being broken and how it's okay to be broken and you're going to be okay.
Absolutely.
I love the guy. I just hope he lives, too. Man. He's got to get healthy.
I think it's a strong opening. I really do think that the premiere is going to be terrific. Gene Smart, I think, is made for that show. I think she'll kill. And then the next week
too?
Well, it's they're bringing him back. Everybody was kind of a little shaky about his first appearance, but he proved that he could be very funny, and that's Nate Bargatze is back.
That'll be great.
And he was terrific. The George Washington sketch is one of the best sketches of last year, and he was great. And Coldplay is the musical guest, so that's very popular. An interesting one for October 12th for the third show of the season. Ariana Grande is the guest, but she's not the musical. She's the host, but she's not the musical.
Just the host. Well, she's funny. I mean, she's a funny kid.
She's terrific
anymore, but she's a funny actress.
She's really funny, and I think she's great. But I think the really cool thing is that the musical guest is Stevie Nicks.
Oh, you're kidding. I love that.
No, yeah, they're catering to us, Steve.
I love that. Hey, one more name drop. Stevie Nicks wanted me to walk her dog. It's a longer story, but she wanted me to walk her dog.
What?
Yeah. She had her dog backstage at a concert, and I was admiring her dog. She goes, "Would you like to take her for a walk?" And I thought Stevie Nicks and I are going to walk her dog. She meant I would take her dog for a walk.
I'll drop you 10. Just
exactly. How about week 4?
Week 4 is this one. I think this is the one that I'm most looking forward to so far. Michael Keaton is going to host, and Billie Eilish is the musical guest. Like for me, that's perfection on both levels, right?
Another home run.
Yeah. And then November 2nd, John Mulaney is going to come back and host again, and then Chappell Rowan is the musical guest. So they've really got names in there for the first 5 weeks, both as hosts and as musical guests. And Mulaney, I love the fact that Mulaney is now this will be his 6th time hosting, I think. And I love the fact that this was a guy who didn't want to be in front of the camera for a long time. He started out as a writer, but then once he got the taste of stand up, and then he's another guy who battled a bunch of demons.
Yeah, well documented. And went into treatment, blew up his marriage. Happily married now to Olivia Munn, right?
Olivia Munn, yeah, but I just find it really ironic. But I just find it really ironic that here's a guy who had some serious issues about being in front of the camera, who is now a camera hog, and that whole thing that he did on Netflix, the live talk show thing that he did, for the LA comedy.
It was
week.
weird. It was weird. It was not well thought out, but you could see it's a want of his. If whatever lives on as late night in the new world is a thing, he wants that.
Yeah, and I thought some of it was great. I mean, I personally predictably, I love he did the interview with John Carpenter, the filmmaker, and I
Right,
love
right,
that was
right.
my favorite thing. But Mulaney, if behind the scenes has written some really classic stuff, and like he's another guy. Here's another one. This is a great example. Steve is another guy who I think is very very funny. I like his writing more than his stand up because his delivery drives me nuts. This is a guy who, like your Stephen Wright, this is a guy who gets under my skin really quickly.
Yeah, he's
And
slow
by the way,
cases.
Sarah Sherman does a killer impression
Oh, really?
of
Of
John
Mulaney?
Mulaney.
Oh, that's funny.
A killer John
Funny.
Mulaney.
I will. I
So
will tell
it'll
you
be good.
this,
But I mean, look,
Mulaney. I love Mulaney, and I will tell you this: Mulaney has to this day the best analogy for Donald Trump as president. And this is 2 or 3 or 4 specials ago when he said, "It's like having a horse in a hospital. You can't help but look, but you don't know what's going to happen, and you just know it's going to be bad."
I
It's
have
just
not heard
fantastic.
that.
It's
Not heard
fantastic.
that. That's perfect. He also, but the thing is, like, he co-wrote and created Stefan, as we all know, with Bill Hader, which is one of the legendary characters of all time. And every time Bill Hader would break and laugh, it's because Mulaney would change the jokes, and Hader wouldn't read them until he was on the air, and that's why he was always breaking it. So he did that, and then he wrote, like the sketch that got cut a bunch of times, and finally when he hosted, they did it. He wrote the Lobster in the Diner sketch, which was a take
Oh
off
yeah,
on Les
yeah,
Mis, which is
yeah.
just genius, and the fact that show that never made it past the first like read through, or maybe a dress at most, and always got cut. And then he had the power to come back and go, look, we're doing it this time because I'm hosting. And I thought that was pretty funny.
So,
But that's the first five episodes.
couple of quick predictions before I ask you to plug
Yeah.
your regular podcast as well.
Yeah.
To me, if you think back to the 40th anniversary, there were so many people who wanted to be a part of it that they didn't have enough tickets. You had people coming in who were like A-list stars who didn't have a +1
Yeah.
because there wasn't enough room in the room. I think you are going to see a tremendous amount of cameos and walk-ons and maybe pre-tapes this year, all leading up to that February special at least.
Yeah.
They need more than an hour.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah. It's interesting because who thought this thing was going to last 50 years? Now, we haven't even mentioned, I haven't seen it yet. I'm seeing it in, I think, 4 days. The movie Saturday Night, the Jason Reitman.
Yeah.
And that, for people who don't know, it takes place on the very first night, October 11th, 1975. It's supposed to take place in real time, 90 minutes before they go to air at 11:30 in New York. And it's the very first episode. So you've got people playing Dan Aykroyd, John Belushi, and Gilda Radner, and Chevy Chase, and all the regulars. And then behind the scenes people, there's people playing Andy Kaufman. There's a Jim Henson in there. There's behind the scenes Dick Ebersol is in there. And the trailers for me, I don't know. I'm really, I don't know. I'm skeptical about the whole thing, and I'm not looking forward to it. But so they're tying it in with that as well. So that not only is it the 50th anniversary, not only do they have this huge 3-hour special prime time in February, not only are they expected to kick serious ass and have surprise guests every week, but now they got this damn movie that's coming out as well. So we are going to be oversaturated. If you're not a Saturday Night Live fan, you're going to be oversaturated with SNL this entire year.
And there are people listening to us right
spring.
now. If you've listened this long, maybe not, but if there's people who are listening now who maybe haven't even seen it, which is crazy to say, there's a gigantic amount of the population who's never seen the show as the show. And of course, the last piece of this, which is the moving piece, is sort of what we mentioned earlier. In the month of October, you have no idea what sort of crazy shit's going to happen in the election.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to react to that on the fly. Yeah. And that could change everything. So, time will tell. All right. Your regular podcast is what?
My regular podcast is the Nick D podcast, which is a pop culture interview podcast where I have regular guests that come in and we cover the world of food and sports and TV. And I have a great TV reporter from the Hollywood Reporter on all the time. And we review the movies, which I do regularly. And I have awesome guests and really cool stuff. And my partner in crime on that is Esmeralda Leon, who used to do traffic on my show back when I worked at the car wash. And it's been around for well over 2 years. I work with Radio Misfits Podcast Network, which is a great podcast network that my friend Ed runs, and it's available on every single format that you can find it, and every channel everywhere. Your Spotify's and your Apples and all that stuff. And it's the Nick D podcast, new episodes every Tuesday and Friday, featuring all up to date pop culture stuff, including movie reviews. which I've been doing it'll be 40 in May, Steve. 40 years I've been a professional critic in May. Starting
And
in
you've
May.
committed to not growing up. I respect that.
It's true.
I've always respected
I'm wearing
that about you.
I'm wearing Chuck Taylors and a Love Boat T-shirt. So that's
Well,
and I'm almost 60.
Listen, your girlfriend loves it. That's all that matters. Buddy, it's great having you on as always. And I know
it's a
you're
blast as always. And
run off to see things. I believe in another world that may still exist on this planet that you and I will work together again. But in the meantime, let's keep doing this.
absolutely, my friend. It's always a pleasure, and it's great. And I think that, and I'm positive actually that I think in the future you and I are going to be working together in a professional capacity where actually we make a little money. That would be nice.
Oh, that's crazy talk. You want to mention your website?
Yeah, the website is nickdigilio.com, Digilio, nickdigilio.com, and it is it's starting
Nick.
point for me for everything Nick, calendar with all of my upcoming events that I'm hosting movie screenings again now regularly, and I've got a blog on there where the content is different almost every day, and you can't get movie reviews or anything like that anywhere else except for nickdigilio.com. So if you want to check it out, that'd be awesome.
Well done, my friend. It's Nick Digilio. You loved him on the radio. You love his podcast if you haven't heard it. And that's everything you wanted to know and a few things you didn't care that much about until today about Saturday Night Live. We'll revisit this sometime soon. Thank you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Always a pleasure.
Thanks again to Nick Digilio. Nick D, those two podcasts are just the beginning of all that is the world of Nick D. NickDigilio.com. Thanks to Ross Cochran, the executive producer of Live from My Office, and mostly thanks to you for listening and spreading the story of Live from My Office. From the mountains to the valleys below, let's get everybody subscribed and listening all the time. There's a billion podcasts out there, but this one still is my favorite. Thank you for listening to Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.
And as always, thank you to our good friends at the Raue Center for the Performing Arts. The Raue Center is one of the great Chicago theaters. And wherever you live, anywhere there is a theater that deserves your support. The Raue Center for the Arts in Crystal Lake, a good piece north of the city, is on William Street in downtown Crystal Lake. It's beautiful. And it's just one of the great theaters and the great theater efforts that goes on all the time. They have shows, and the schedule coming up is tremendous. Check out the monthly Lucy's comedy, stand-up comedy, the Green Room Improv, the Teacher's Lounge comedy that's coming up. Check out your opportunity to learn how to be a stand-up from my pal John DeCause. And don't forget about our New Year's Eve show as well. And if you love great, I don't even know how to describe David Sedaris. If you don't know who David Sedaris is, you should. But David Sedaris is coming live in October, and he is well worth the trip and the effort as well. As are we, 2:00 on New Year's Eve. New Year's Eve for people that can't stay awake until dinner. That's our 2:00 New Year's Eve show, and we hope you'll be there for that as well. And, of course, the Raue Center has summer classes still remaining and into the fall as well, not just for the cost, but the School for the Arts is always a way for you to scratch that itch that you should be on stage. At the bare minimum, it'll teach you how to be better at whatever it is you do in life. 815-356-9212, 815-356-9212. That's the box office. Thank you for the continued support of Live from My Office to the Raue Center. RaueCenter.org to get your tickets for New Year's Eve or any of their other great shows.